Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Matt Goes to the Movies. Thanks for being here with us today. And this one is exciting. The multiverse has finally actually come to pass, as I have two guests with me today, something we've been looking forward to. First up is Rob. You've recognized his voice probably from Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. So, Rob, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad we're getting a chance to do this.
Yeah, and always better late than never. He's had some busy time here, but we were finally able to get him. Harrison from the Basement Binge is able to join us. Harrison, it's been a while, but welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm really excited to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man, but I'm also just excited to be here recording a podcast with the two of you. I've been listening to the other Spider-Man ones, jealous that I couldn't be there. So I'm kind of glad in two ways. One, that I'm actually recording a podcast with you. Two, that like the mental realization that I'm out of the busy season, podcast aside. So it's great to be here.
Yeah, no, we've, it's been certainly a lot of fun. We had talked about, the three of us getting together. So it seems like the next couple episodes we'll all be able to, to jump on and do these. But quite an interesting movie here, The Amazing Spider-Man. And I think actually a good one for the three of us to actually start off doing together as a trio for the first time.
Yeah, it's been a minute since the three of us have had a chance to do an episode together. I'm trying to remember what the last thing was that we were all three able to do. So definitely looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, before we get started, Rob, we've been doing something here with these Spider-Man ones where there's been a lot of interaction. Harrison, I know you said you've been listening to them. So I've been doing a couple of questions on the Instagram account and on Facebook. So I'd like to take a second here to recognize some of the listeners that took the time to chime in, answer some of the questions that were on Instagram. So guys, feel free to chime in. I know, Harrison, you had a couple of thoughts on these, but the first one that I asked was, is this the best Spider-Man representation for his fighting style? At Xavier Luna 547 said it's possible. At Westward Media 1217 says absolutely. And Jake _ Crawford 5 says, yes, it is. I agree with Jake Crawford. I think this is absolutely the best representation of Spider-Man, which I'll get into more. I'm sure we all will in the episode, but I definitely think this is easily the best representation for his fighting style.
I like what he does with this. It's definitely a lot better than what we saw with the previous three in the Sam Raimi trilogy. Certainly better than what we got in the first one, which kind of doesn't hold up maybe as well as I remember it did, when we did that recent rewatch. I'm still kind of partial to how he was used in the MCU so far. But I'll tell you, I really love the way they make the webbing work in this. It feels so true to the comic. I love the variation on how his webs work, and the swinging. The fighting is much better than what we saw certainly in the Sam Raimi trilogy, but it really did feel like this could have been the true, it had the potential to be the real, fans version of Spider-Man. I think depending on what you grew up with, you kind of have your idea of who Batman is to you. I think this version of Spider-Man could have been a lot of people's. That's my Spider-Man. If they would have continued on with some of the things that worked and maybe abandoned some of the ideas that really didn't.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say, I don't know how quickly I want to jump in with my hot takes, but this is definitely one that watching it, I appreciate the physical portrayal of what I imagine as Spider-Man. So I'm excited. I have a few things to say that might be controversial.
Yeah, no, I think this is one where I was super intrigued by rewatching this one, and it's kind of hard to go without spoilers. So with that being said, let's get into the watch rating segment. For listeners, this is where we rate this movie how rewatchable it is, and it's done off 3 simple scales, either high, medium, or low. High means you would rewatch it multiple times, you just throw it on yourself. Medium, maybe if it's on TV, you'd stop, watch it. Or once in a while, maybe if you're doing a rewatch of Spider-Man, you would throw this on. Low means it's terrible. There's no reason for you to rewatch this one. Now, with your rating, this is also where we'll keep it spoiler free and just give a quick little recap of why we feel that way. So, Rob, I'm going to let you kick it off with where this ranks for you in terms of rewatching.
So I think to really contextualize how I rank this, it's important to note that I'm a busy person. So for me, and I've got a lot of things I'm interested in. I have a lot of things I like to read. I have a lot of things I like to watch. I have a lot of video games I like to play. So if I'm going to assign something a high rewatchability, it's got to be kind of an all-time like classic. It's got to be one of my top films ever. So I kind of need to make sure I clarify it that way, because there's not a lot of movies I would truly assign a high to, because I just don't have the time. I'm somebody who would, in a lot of cases, rather check something out I haven't seen before because I'm just so far behind on it, on some of the things that I'd like to get to, than kind of re-watch or redo something, replay something, reread something I've already, media I've already consumed. That being said, this would be a medium rating for me. My kids haven't seen this yet, so getting ready for the next the third MCU solo Spider-Man film, if they wanted to try to see this one because it's going to be connected in some way, in some ways, I guess I should say, I would sit down and rewatch this with them again and not be like, all right, fine, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, Harrison, I'll let you cap us off here, so I'll go next. This is definitely a medium for me as well. I feel like I need to take one more watch of this movie to truly see how I feel about it. I definitely feel this movie has a very good representation of Spider-Man. I think it has two very strong leads that I'm dying to get into about how they work on screen together. But where this movie fails, I feel like it fails very, very hard. And unfortunately for me, the highest of highs, although very good, actually aren't as high as the lowest of lows in this movie. So I do feel like I need another rewatch, but I definitely do want to rewatch this at some point. So I am rating it a medium for me as well.
Well, to close up here, I guess, then I guess it's mediums across the board. I forgot how recently I had watched this before. Like, I knew I'd seen it, but I didn't realize I'd watched it in like the last 3 years. And so rewatching it this time, there was a lot of things that weren't as exciting because it immediately felt familiar. Like so kind of similar to what you were just saying, Matt, that while there are some things that I really, really do enjoy about this, and I'm excited to talk about those specifics, there are some things that it's like, okay, this isn't great. I don't have a hot take that this is the best Spider-Man movie or anything like that. I'm not in a rush to go watch it immediately again. Like, it's not the top of my rewatch. Like Rob said, I'm busy, like that's probably a big reason. But I wouldn't, a year, 2 years from now, I wouldn't have a bad any problems popping it in and watching it. Like it's a film that I know I'll revisit, but it's what I'm trying to say. It's other, like, outside forces are what's going to prompt me to watch it again, if that makes sense. Like, similar to what we're doing right now and preparing for No Way Home, that type of stuff. So medium.
Yeah, no, I think what you said makes a lot of sense. Sometimes those outside forces are what, causes you to rewatch it. Who knows with the whole multiverse thing, how relevant this movie might or might not be. Certainly some of the later ones seem like they might be a little bit more relevant from what we've seen from trailers for No Way Home. But listeners, if you have not for some reason watched The Amazing Spider-Man, maybe you've been, keeping up with the social media pages for Matt Goes to the Movies, and you want to check this out, and you have not seen the movie and don't want to be spoiled, this is where you'd have to pause this episode, because we are going to get into popcorn time. And popcorn time at Matt Goes to the Movies is where we break down the summary of the movie, main characters, themes, relatable messages, also talk about our favorite parts, along with least favorite parts and characters. So, this movie was 5 years after Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 4 was in the works. They went through 5 or so scripts. Raimi was upset. Tobey was upset. And they decided to scrap everything altogether. And, this movie, it's even on the poster. I think it was Rob or Harrison. I can't remember exactly who, but, you sent me the picture of it. And this was touted as the untold story of Spider-Man. And certainly when I went back and watched this, I do feel like there's some things that I didn't really remember. And I was like, oh, they did try to take a different route with this movie and explaining, him becoming Spider-Man. But there's also some familiar tones. Some of them work being so familiar, and other tones don't work. So, Harrison, I'll let you start because I'm curious to find out your guys' thoughts on, was this really the untold story of Spider-Man, or do you think that's why during its initial release, it wasn't that, it certainly did pretty good at the box office, but it was almost too familiar territory for a lot of fans?
Yeah, I saw that untold thing as well. I mean, even on this Blu-ray case that I'm holding here, it says the same thing, the untold story of the legendary web shooter. It's like my brain, even after just watching it, like literally minutes ago, finishing it, thinking, what was untold? Gwen Stacy, maybe. That's what I think. I think that the general movie-going public didn't know about Gwen Stacy, and that's it. We knew about Uncle Ben. We know about him really well now. We know about Peter Parker. We know about Spider-Man. I think now there's some other things that I think they did try to do new. I think trying to dig into kind of what motivates Spider-Man outside of Uncle Ben, like being an orphan and getting into his parents and how that would affect somebody, and not just like going straight to Uncle Ben. That was new, and Gwen Stacy. So I think there were elements that were new, but I mean, it's the same character. There's only so much that you can make new. I think that's kind of a lofty declaration that this is the untold story of Spider-Man.
Yeah, Rob, what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, we've already. I mean, we saw Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3. I mean, in a very different capacity. We even saw Dr. Connors before. Again, in a different capacity. He never made it to lizard form, although we saw, a dude with one arm that interacted with Peter. It definitely is a story that's been told. I'll tell you. So if listeners, if you're just kind of checking this out because you either haven't seen this movie and you're going to use this recap to kind of help you get ready for No Way Home, and you're kind of trying to decide if you should watch it or not. I had actually never watched it before, getting a chance to prepare for this episode. And as I came away from when I turned this movie off, I kind of said to myself, why did I wait so long to watch this? Because in truth, I enjoyed my time watching this movie. I enjoyed my time interacting with this movie. My biggest takeaway when I turned this off, though, was, man, if you take the best parts of this, the things that work really well about this, and you somehow amalgamate that with the best parts of the Sam Raimi trilogy, and you pull away all the parts that really don't work from both, you have an unbelievable Spider-Man movie. Start to finish, you have something that's going to be entertaining for a movie-going audience that will totally make the hardcore comic fans satisfied with what they got. If you could somehow do that, because the best parts of both of these are actually really good. The worst parts of both of these are actually really bad. And there's some very obvious things that this movie copies that we've already seen. And I'll go specifically right to it. The scene where Uncle Ben starts to kind of allude to with great power comes great responsibility. He doesn't actually come right out and say it. He alludes to it. We in the audience all know exactly what he's talking about. We get it. That's the Leonardo DiCaprio moment where he like points at the TV holding a beer, like ha ha. He's talking about great power and great responsibility. Like we all know what that is. But even Martin Sheen can't make that scene work. It's not well written. The death of Uncle Ben really doesn't work well in this movie. It works so much better in the first version of Spider-Man that we saw in film. And the whole relationship between Peter and Uncle Ben, I don't think in this movie sells very well or works very well, even though they probably have more screen time together in this than they did in the first one. But yeah, if you kind of like cannibalize the two film universes and just keep what works, you actually have a really good movie.
So I'm going to jump in really quick because I have some agreements and I actually have some minor disagreements with it. I think Rob, I do agree with taking both parts of these movies, and if you meshed them, I honestly think if this movie was the first Spider-Man that came out on screen, like I think this would be the definitive edition. If we had not seen this 5 years ago, I think this is like maybe a terrific Spider-Man movie, but it felt so quick, and it still like even though it's been what I mean. When did the original Spider-Man come out?
2001, I think.
2001?
One or two, yeah.
Yeah, like even though it's been so long, it still feels like watching it like this was too soon to reboot Spider-Man in this direction. But if this would have been the first attempt at a Spider-Man movie, I think there's a lot here because I can't believe I'm saying this because I thought I'd be somebody who was like, oh my God. I actually think the relationship with Uncle Ben and Peter works really well. And maybe that's all Andrew Garfield, because I'm going to tell you right now, I forgot how believable he actually is. I think Andrew Garfield is fantastic in this movie. I think he shows genuine emotion. I think he shows a very good range. Rob, the scene that you're talking about when he delivers that line, like, your father lived by a code, and if you had the, whereabouts to do something good for others, you had a moral obligation to do that, or however he says it. I think it's like they're trying to put the writer thinks he's cleverer than he is, trying to put his own spin on it.
Yeah.
But I think before that, when he's like, your aunt, my wife, like had to walk 12 blocks and wait in a subway, and like, you need to take ownership for this. I thought those were like very relatable messages. And I thought those scenes were very well done. I really enjoyed the relationship, and I did find myself kind of like drawn to the fact of Uncle Ben, getting killed in this movie. And, maybe it's not because of Uncle Ben, like the thought of like, oh man, but again, like for me, Andrew Garfield's performance in this really dragged me into some of these scenes that were familiar, but still felt somewhat different because of his performance.
I actually also think that if you hold up a comic book that shows Peter Parker and you kind of hold it next to any scene in this movie with Andrew Garfield, looks like he's right off the page. Really helps sell that character. I thought he did a phenomenal job. I also think that bringing in Emma Stone was an incredible decision. She's awesome in every scene she's in this movie. I'm pretty sure she's awesome in every scene she's ever in every movie I've ever seen. Like, she's probably one of my favorite actresses in Hollywood right now. It's her and Emily Blunt. I'm trying to decide between the two of them. Like, if I had to say a favorite, I'm not sure I could pick a favorite because I've just loved both of them in literally everything I've seen them in. Really does a great job with what you think about how piss poor the writing was for MJ in the Raimi trilogy, how bad the dialogue was, how bad her character was. And they actually gave the love interest something to do. They gave her something interesting. Andrew Garfield crushes in this movie. Emma Stone absolutely crushes in this movie. I really like the two of them together. There's some weird writing that doesn't like make a ton of sense. Like when they're first kind of starting to meet each other, you kind of forgive it though because they pull it off so well.
Yeah, Harrison, where do you, kind of backtracking a little bit, where do you stand on some of the themes that were familiar and, do you feel like some of those dynamics did work, didn't work?
Yeah, just to like quickly hit through a few things that were said. I think that, because in response, is this an untold story of Spider-Man? I think this really did add a lot of newness in the way Peter Parker is portrayed and also Spider-Man. Like we already kind of mentioned the fighting style at the beginning, like the swinging and not just the acrobatic type physicality of it, but that it's practically done instead of mostly CG. That is really different and really adds to the character of it being Spider-Man. Also, I feel like we get all the quips that you guys complain about in your Spider-Man episode that we normally don't get with Spider-Man. Like this is to talk about Andrew Garfield selling the character. One thing I think he really shines at is that Peter Parker and Spider-Man feel like two very different people, and he performs them very differently and works so good. And especially when he's with Gwen, to go off what Rob said, Emma Stone is fantastic as Gwen, and the way that Andrew Garfield plays like this weird in between Spider-Man Peter Parker when he's with Gwen, and the way that it really works. Their relationship, in particularly in this film, I think works really, really well, which is refreshing because the way that it worked out just in the business of my schedule, I watched Spider-Man 1, what was it, 2 days ago? Yeah, 2 days ago. And then I just watched The Amazing Spider-Man, right? So I'm getting a strong contrast between the two. And this film really sells the relationship that Peter would have with Gwen really well, and also making it so that like Gwen genuinely feels like she falls in love with Peter and has a relationship to him. Like she seeks him out. She's okay with his absolute awkwardness. And that I really, really like. Uncle Ben, though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I agree. I just wanted to chime in really quick because one of the things Rob and I talked about is the absolute like stiffness and how I didn't feel. And a lot of it was writing, but Rob and I never really felt like I just never believed Peter and Mary Jane going back and watching those three movies. Like it never felt right. And although some of this to me feels rushed, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone they started dating during filming this. So, maybe that's why everything comes off the screen so, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Authentic. Because of maybe them dating in real life. But, man, they absolutely knock it out of the park. But I'll let you continue with Uncle Ben.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree with everything you said. With Uncle Ben, I'm in this weird, I feel like I'm in kind of between the camps of what Rob said and what you said, Matt, where like there's parts of him where I'm like, man, I really like this version of Uncle Ben. Like he resonates with me more than Raimi's Uncle Ben did. But when he dies, it's like, oh yeah, my Uncle Ben died. Like, what did you expect? His name's Uncle Ben or in a Spider-Man movie. Like it doesn't land emotionally. And maybe it's because it is just a rehash of something we didn't need to see again. But there are some scenes like when the scene, when what am I trying to say? When he comes into Peter's room, when Peter finds the briefcase and he's looking at the stuff on the ground, and then he comes in his room, he picks up the Rubik's Cube and he's playing with it. Like I really like that scene. Like that feels like a good relationship because, like as much as we like to talk about how Aunt May and Uncle Ben are his parents, like I feel like this film in particular shows that this is a difficult relationship for them. Like they didn't ask for this kid. Like they love him and they parent him wonderfully and they really care about him. But like their siblings just showed up and dropped off their kid and disappeared. Like that's not, who would sign up for that? Like as much as you love your nephew, no one would sign up for that. And,
right. Yeah. No, I think that's a great point.
And especially because if you think about it, May Parker is not even a blood relative to Peter. And she's like his world. And he is like her world through most of the relationships and in most forms of media that you see. So it's really interesting that way.
Yeah. So I'm being long-winded. I just was saying that I with everything that you two just said, I feel like that relationship and like the weird balance between like animosity and great respect and love between Peter and Uncle Ben works really, really well. I think Andrew Garfield's performance when Uncle Ben dies is really powerful, but I don't feel for Uncle Ben's death. I don't know how that works. I think both Andrew Garfield and whoever plays Aunt May, Sally Field, both sell the emotion of losing a loved one, but I just don't feel for it. And so I'm in this weird in-between.
Right. I think that's Garfield's performance is great. You don't feel anything towards Uncle Ben actually, again, because it's so, 5 years, again, say what you will about Spider-Man 3. It still made the most out of the trilogy. People would have still gone for a Spider-Man 4. Hopefully, okay, they're back. Hopefully they right the wrong with Spider-Man 3. And then to get this movie and get a lot of the same things, yeah, it's hard to feel emotion for some of those, some of those story beats that we, know so well as fans. One thing that we haven't talked about yet that I want to just loop to really quick about the storyline of this movie. And it leads into like a typical MacGuffin of, oh, we have to start trials and who better than the person to test it on himself. But I did like the idea of Norman Osborn already being established in this universe and the fact that he's dying. I think it's handled very poorly later on. But the mystique to me of Norman Osborn dying and them trying to find a cure for him, really, really intrigued me. Again, I think the later execution is handled incredibly poorly, but I like that aspect of this.
In terms of showing us something we haven't already seen, there's some great decisions that were made. Switching from the MJ to Gwen Stacy, great decision. Switching to a world where Norman's kind of already a guy, but he's maybe dying, I think was another great decision. I guess in terms of just kind of revisiting the idea that this is the untold story, the one thing I guess maybe you really could point to is the situation with Peter's parents, who occasionally in the comics, they're actually SHIELD agents. Like they kind of on again, off again, they're SHIELD agents and not agents, like that to me, I think was really interesting, especially the way the end credit scene kind of goes with this. But I think that in trying to do something a little bit different, I think there's areas where this movie really succeeds. You think about when this comes out in 2012, almost every superhero movie we got to that point was essentially an origin story. If it wasn't just a continuation with, maybe recasting Batman 3 times or however many times we'd gotten to that point, most of our superhero stories were origin stories. I think like even the Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton, they kind of do a little bit of an origin story by opening credit montage, which one of the things I really like about that movie is we didn't have to see the gamma bomb go off. I think if this movie would have chosen not necessarily to have to give that to us, because it takes a while to get there, and some of the areas of this movie that are the longest to sit through are the parts leading up to when he actually becomes full-on Spider-Man. I think if this movie just would have kind of skipped the origin or just given us just a brief rundown and gotten right to the action, I think this would have been a better movie.
Harrison, I have something to piggyback off of that, but I want to let you go first before I get into my full spiel. Do you have anything that you want to follow up on that with?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think Sony made an origin story because, again, what you two talked about in the other episode for the first Spider-Man is it just made like all of the money. Like before that was a thing. I know Rob loves to say that all the time. Like Spider-Man invented that. And so I felt like they were like, oh, let's just go with what works. Let's make an origin story. But what would have been so much better is to be like, hey, Spider-Man's in the zeitgeist. You guys know how he came about. Maybe we're going to tweak a few things about his character. He's going to have web shooters instead of organic webs, whatever, You change a few little things and you take the story a step back instead of making it a sequel. But, like, I don't need to see Uncle Ben die again. I love to see Spider-Man swinging around. And that's one thing, like Rob said, is that the first part of the film, I forget about during the latter half of the film. But then when the whole film is over, I'm like, oh, yeah, that first half was a part of this. And that was a bit of a drag.
Yeah, so part of my real problem with this movie, and really quickly, I will say that I find it funny that I love that they make Peter smart in this. To me, like much more so than what they show Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker to be. I feel like they
Yeah.
really represent Parker's intelligence in this and him making the web shooters. And I found it funny because, like, going back and watching this, the way he gets bit, the way he pulls the web out of his neck, the way he like catches the fly, and you can see he almost is going to eat it. The way he's like bugging out, which I think that scene is crap. He looks like somebody who needs another, addiction of smack. And then it didn't work in X-Men Origins Wolverine, the bathroom scene where he's just bumbling over everything. Like, I thought that was really bad, but I found it funny that it looked like almost this would be why Peter would have organic webs shooting out of his body, the way that like they made him act after he got bit. So, seeing him be intelligent and create everything was really cool. But, part of my problem is when he like everything seems to be abrupt when it happens. He goes through, he has just the mask on, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's Spider-Man. I know we get the Tony Hawk Pro Skater montage of him swinging on ropes and everything else, but like it just feels abrupt. Even his relationship with Gwen, even though it's like very like they're great together, it's okay, well, I kind of like you, let's hang out. And then your uncle dies, and then it seems like you guys haven't talked, and then it's like, oh, hey, come to dinner at my house. Dad, by the way, I have a boyfriend. Like, it shifts tonally for me a lot. And as soon as he becomes Spider-Man, I was like, wow, that seemed very, very quick. And if the cops are so smart, I mean, how many people look exactly the same? Maybe more. Maybe I sound like an idiot here, but wouldn't you think maybe if this guy, like when Captain Stacy is like, he's hunting down people that all look the same, like he's got some personal vendetta, like I feel like maybe some cop would make a comparison to, hey, this is the guy that shot Uncle Ben. Some dude is randomly going around and like going after 15 people that supposedly all look the same in dark alleys. Maybe we should go question Peter Parker. I don't know. That's just my thought.
And it's weird because the guy that's beating all these guys up is almost like the exact same height and build as this kid. Weird, right?
Right, exactly.
And man, wasn't it that Peter Parker that just like broke a backboard on the biggest jock in the school, like randomly out of nowhere? Like he's almost got superpowers. Holy cow. This is so weird, you guys. I wonder if this is related. Nah.
Don't forget, too, he bends the entire field goal post by throwing the ball from like 50 yards away, and everybody's like, oh, what the heck, Peter? You ruined our game. Like,
yeah,
not
like no look too. Like he wasn't even paying attention.
Right,
just
like
chucks it.
They're not like, how are you incredibly weirdly strong? They're just like, oh no, you bent the football pole.
It scene doesn't work. It's a sight gag for the sake of a sight gag, and I absolutely hate that basketball scene. I hate a lot of things about that basketball scene, but it's so weird to me when they put something like this in there and then expect the audience not to question why every kid in that high school doesn't know Peter Parker is Spider-Man. When you have those two scenes that are, and can I just say how much I hate the stock character of the high school bully that they made Flash into in this movie? It's just it. They do one kind of redeeming thing that's a little bit interesting when he comes up to Peter and it looks like he's trying to be genuine about the death of Uncle Ben. And that to me, I sort of like that a little bit about the character, but we've seen like high school bullies, they don't actually work that way. Like it's not that overt. Like the way they show Flash, like, making the kid like shove his face into the whatever it is that's on the lunch tray, like, like all of that kind of stuff. it's lazy screenwriting. And it's one of the things that I hate more than anything. Listeners, you've heard me complain about lazy screenwriting, probably almost more than anything, except how bad The Last Jedi is. But lazy screenwriting, you can't even try to, I got it in there. It's probably about a half hour in. I'm doing pretty good. It's just like, try to give us a character with a little bit of nuance. Use some creativity instead of just rolling out the same meathead that we've seen in every TV show and every movie that has a meathead for years and years and years. Going all the way back to the Future, Biff Tanner. Like, what's the difference in this movie between Flash and Biff? Is there any? Because I would say there's not.
No, there's not.
And to talk about, that basketball scene, because then they follow it up with, which I think is actually a pretty decent scene, when Uncle Ben comes to get him at school and he's trying to teach him a lesson. He's like, oh, I bet it felt pretty good to humiliate that boy, didn't it? Like, is that the same kid that hit you? But it's like, you just had this absolutely ridiculous scene, and then you try and like counterbalance it with a serious scene where, Uncle Ben turns around and like humiliates him by being like, he's got you on his computer and I'm his parole officer. Like, I like the parallel of him trying to show Peter, like, doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel good, does it? But it just doesn't stick because of the fact that it's like, so many people would be questioning what the heck just happened. Like, how did you leap above the back? Like, it just, again, a tonal shift from that scene is ridiculous to, oh, you're trying to actually send a message with this scene. But I'm just thinking about the fact that it would be like, so I know you broke the backboard, but like, yeah, you need to be on the basketball team if you can actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, you took off from the 3-point line. That's a little bit better than even MJ or Dominique at their peak, like taking off from the foul line. Like, you took off from the 3-point line and broke the backboard. You're like 150 pounds, maybe. Like, Shaq breaks backboards, but he's 320 pounds. You're like 150, and you took off from the 3-point line. And then he turns it into like a teachable moment instead of trying to question all of this, knowing not that long ago, Peter came home and was like grabbing everything out of the fridge, almost like he had the munchies, that he'd been doing a lot of pot or something like that. Like, if I'm Uncle Ben, I've got some different questions in this scene than, oh, felt pretty good, huh?
And speaking of lazy screenwriting, just to add this on here, I mean, I think it's interesting how Mark Webb, the director who I was listening to an interview with, talked about how he wanted to add like a kind of chip on the shoulder type attitude to this Peter Parker because he was left behind, and how like that kind of makes him like, he's not an outcast because he's a nerd. Like, he chooses to be because he's like, I'm an orphan type boy. Like, he has an orphan mentality. But I like that. But what I don't like is that Peter Parker, at least on the screen, only seems to learn lessons the hard way. He gets his power, and then he goes back and he beats up the bully who was beating him up. And then his Uncle Ben has to tell him, hey, don't do that. And then they kind of get in an argument, and then Uncle Ben dies, and he's like, oh, maybe I should use my powers more responsibly.
Yeah, I don't think, again, that's why I'm confused as to where my stance is on this movie, because it works so well in certain areas, and one area I'm going to jump to it where it doesn't work well is Lizard. I don't think he's all that interesting. Again, it's another, I'm going to throw gas across the city. It's, the equivalent of the space portal, without it being
Is this not the exact same plot as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows? I'm pretty sure that's the exact same setup, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's Turtles would have, completely copied it because this came out before, but it's just so... It's so odd, and if you watch... This is where I feel like I have to talk about this, because Lizard doesn't necessarily really work in this movie for me. But there's deleted scenes that actually evolve the plot of this movie and make it make more sense. That's why I say everything seems so abrupt, because this is one of those movies where I watch the deleted scenes and I go, why did you do that? There's movies that I'll watch and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. You should have cut that. But this is one of those movies where I go, no, like, you did yourself such a disservice by cutting out these moments that actually explain, what's going on. There's at one point where, Curt Connors is, because he's not going to start human trials and test, he gets kicked out of the office and have your stuff cleared. But then he, like, what seems like a day or two passes and he's casually able to stroll back into Oscorp. Like, wouldn't his card be revoked? Like, you were told to leave. How did you get back in?
And can we just talk about, like, how big are the, like, banker boxes that he's walking out of the office with? Because his sewer lair has, like, the craziest setup ever, right? Like, how does he smuggle all of that gear out of Oscorp to go set that thing up? It's you're right, Matt. This movie is rushed in so many ways that it makes you wonder how much better some of these story beats could have landed if they weren't also trying to tell an origin story that's the weakest part of the movie. And just kind of the parts you're talking about with Connors, like, the guy's already been fired for sticking to his principles, and then he just decides to shoot himself up with the serum anyways. He's a man of science who wasn't documenting and doing any of the proper steps, like, throughout this whole process. Like, he just jumps right into it, and then eventually goes to the sewer and starts, like, trying to actually do it as a scientific experiment. Like, there's so many parts of that just kind of, it makes me go, huh? What are you doing here?
Yeah, Harrison, I'll let you go next. Any thoughts? Were you?
I didn't have the chance to watch any deleted scenes, just with the sake of time. But one thing that I think is really interesting, again, to use Rob's, I don't know, phrase of lazy screenwriting, that maybe I'm overusing it now, is just the idea that, and especially so because I just watched Spider-Man 1, Raimi's trilogy, or Raimi's first film with Green Goblin, to have almost the exact same, like, dual personality, bad guy, good guy voice in your head type thing for the lizard. Like, is there an evil lizard in his head that takes over? Like why would this lizard mutagen make you evil? Like, I can get the idea that, okay, this man who is a man of science and he's a good person, he wants to follow the rules and care for people. He takes this risk. And because he takes this risk, he gets this rush of a reward that he thinks is the next big step. And he gets kind of obsessive with it. And that weird obsession leads him to do evil things that normally wouldn't make sense if he didn't have this weird compulsive obsession. That, to me, would be interesting. I felt like they were trying to do that, but then they were also, like, did the exact same thing where there's literally a voiceover in his head, telling him to go and do the bad things, and him, like, being like, no, we can't do that. The exact same way it does with Willem Dafoe. And that part of it works so much better with Willem Dafoe. And just does not work at all here. Like those voiceovers of the evil lizard or whatever it is sounds so cringy to me. It's not believable in any way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think some of that would have been less egregious had they kept this movie at the full cut and hadn't really taken away a lot of the explanation behind his motivation, because it's really, really bad in this movie. And that's part of the reason why, I have trouble with it, because you cut things that actually made this story better. You keep in the fact, regardless of whether or not I felt that it worked, you keep in the fact that Uncle Ben gets shot and dies, but then you cut out a good, I think it's like 30 minutes of actual, like, lizard plot in this movie that makes him a much more believable villain about what he's trying to accomplish. So the things that they kept seem really odd in choice of what they cut to make this movie more cohesive.
We've seen, including this film, 3 Spider-Man villains that start as men of science who have some kind of accident or do something to themselves. The first two times, the reason that they kind of take that heel turn, to borrow a wrestling analogy, and become a bad guy, it's because a direct result of what they did. With Doc Ock, it's for whatever reason the arms kind of make him crazy, and that whole thing. And I kind of had some issues with why that makes any sense in the first one. Like, why do the arms have to be? Why do they have to be evil? Like, what about them is inherently evil? Like, they almost kind of remind you of the Sentinels from the Matrix a little bit, in kind of their design and just their awareness of themselves. But with Green Goblin, it absolutely works. In this film, I have to agree. I don't know that I really understand. Like, okay, so he turns into a lizard. Why does he have to be an evil lizard? Like, what about that? Like, why does that have to be? Like, he can't just be like, yeah, I'm kind of scaly now. How you guys doing? I'm just going to keep teaching and doing science work here. But I've got scales now. Like, I don't know. I think, again, if this movie would have kept some of those deleted scenes that you were talking about, instead of focusing on an origin story that really isn't needed, would have been a better movie.
Yeah. So let's talk about, though, because we talked about his fighting style, and I will say the first scene of him going down into the sewer, like, we've seen that pose before, Spider-Man hanging upside down in the web, but just the way that it's shot, the very dimly lit tunnel, but watching him shoot the webs to make the trap for Lizard to come to him. I think that scene is really well done, and it's really the first showcase of him. Well, I should say really the first showcase is when that cop like haphazardly shoots at him with the guy stuck to the wall. Like, so you're either going to shoot him and kill him, or like if he moved, you're going to shoot the criminal. Like, he's super trigger happy, but like that scene, and then the subsequent scene in the school, which I don't understand why he keeps taking off the mask. Boy, yeah, it's amazing to see the difference going back, Rob, especially for me and you, watching the web slinging in Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and then watching the web slinging in this movie, and just watching Garfield's body movements, the way that he swings, the way that he, tucks around buildings. It's so, to me, it is leaps and bounds ahead of what we got with the original trilogy, especially the scene in the school where he webs him up in the hallway when Gwen is there, and he's just like crawling over him and underneath him. I was like, I forgot how well they actually portray him as Spider-Man in this movie, because I think those scenes are incredible and way beyond what we got. Even, the second movie and the third movie for Tobey Maguire, there's definitely more Spider-Man there, but for me, I don't even think it's close in comparison to this movie.
It'll be hard to rewatch the Raimi trilogy's action scenes after seeing this, because you're 100% right. I love the variation they use with the webbing. I love the way the webbing works. Him kind of descending into the sewer that way. It feels like Spider-Man. It just feels like what we've seen in the cartoons that were fun, in comics, great representations, in video games. This could have been, like I said, the quintessential Spider-Man. For whatever reason, it's not really regarded that way. This could have been so much better received and revered long term. Just talking about that one sewer scene, that one of the things I absolutely love, I think it's in the sewer scene, he sets this little trap, and he's waiting and he's waiting and he's waiting. So he starts playing a bubble game on his phone. Like, it's that really, to me, was just like another reminder that Spider-Man is a different hero than Captain America. He's a different hero than Wolverine and Cyclops. He's a kid. He's a different kind of hero with a different kind of, ethos and a different way of approaching things. And he's more fun than than like Silver Surfer, for example. Like I love that little bit that they added.
Yeah, Harrison, where do you stand out on all this, bud?
I agree with everything that was said. I love the fight style. Like I said, I'm planning to watch all of the films, and I've only rewatched the first in the Raimi trilogy, and now I'm watching this, and I think it is going to be hard to go back to that in the way that the fighting and swinging is so different. You mentioned the scene that I love where he webs the lizard and like crawls over him, and it genuinely looks like a bug crawling around. Or earlier, when they're in the hall with all the locker rooms, the lizard goes to attack him, and he like webs between his legs and pulls himself with it through his legs and like slides on the ground. It's like the coolest thing ever. The way he swings and the camera work, and even everything that went into making the swinging and the fighting to be done practically. It was a lot of work. Yes, there is CGI in there. When they do use it, I feel like they do a good job hiding it, of having it be in kind of dimmer lit areas and more exterior shots on buildings. I feel like they did a good job there, because it really does feel like it's Spider-Man's fighting. And it is a lot of fun. And I think Andrew Garfield's physical performance, and of course all the stunt workers that made it happen, it makes it so much better. I think that's one thing that this film definitely does really well, is the action. It makes you feel like you're in the moment swinging. It makes you feel like you're in the moment fighting. It works really, really well.
Yeah, I want to take a quick sidebar, because when this first came out, this was a topic of huge discussion. At least when, I was around when this first came out, is the suit. I remember the suit getting trashed heavily. It looks like a basketball. However, watching this movie back, I really actually don't take issue with this suit. And Harrison, I'll defer to you first. What are your thoughts on this suit? Because really, when this movie first came out, it was not received well. And I didn't really like it either. I was like, it's an odd choice that they went with it. But for whatever reason, the second time around, I found myself like really drawn to the suit and actually impressed by it.
Yeah, I commented on your Instagram thing you had. I love this suit. This is as much as I love the MCU Spider-Man and Tom Holland, this is my favorite version of the suit. I love the suits in the MCU, and I like the design of them. I love the colors and almost like the organic look of Tobey's suit. But this suit is my favorite. It feels like an actual suit. One of the problems that I feel like with particularly Tom's is it feels like it's just somebody standing there who is like their skin is made of spider suit. It doesn't feel like it's a person wearing a suit. Like it feels like a mannequin that is the suit, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's hard to explain. And I feel like, I just like the suit. How did he get it? How did he screen his logo on spandex that's textured by himself? I have no idea, but it looks sweet. And even in this Blu-ray that I have, it's the two films together, so it has some photos of the suit in the second film. I've never seen The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it looks like they changed the suit, and I'm not happy about it, because this really is my favorite suit. Even like the lenses he has for his eyes and like the tracksuit style shoes he has. And then one last thing that I like about the suit that they do in other films, particularly in the Raimi film I noticed, but in this film I love the way they do it, is that you can actually and consistently see the seam between his neck and his mask. Drives me nuts about Tom Holland's suit that in one scene it's like perfectly seamless between his mask and his neck, and then another scene to like pull the mask off. It says like, you can't do that. Like, I know you can't. That thing is glued to your head and your neck sewn together. Where this, it feels really real. Like, yeah, this isn't a suit this is a suit that he made himself, and it's literally just a mask, and it doesn't magically tie up itself to its neck. There's a seam there, and I don't know, maybe I'm being really nitpicky. I just prefer this suit. It's hard to explain. There's just a lot of intangibles about it that it really, really works for me, especially the light when every single time he shoots a web, the little red light. Just those little things.
That little detail I really enjoyed.
Yeah, so I love the suit.
Rob, where do you stand?
Yeah, so you have to make it different from what we had seen before. And you weren't going to make it exactly the same way. So they had to do something to alter it. They had to do something to separate this for fans, because people need to know they're going to see a different movie, because audiences are sometimes kind of dumb. Not all of them research every single detail and are combing through trailers to see if you can catch a glimpse of Tobey Maguire, in a new trailer for the next Spider-Man movie or not. So you got to make sure your audience knows that it's different, and you want to separate it. You want it to feel like it's a restart, it's a reboot. I never really even seen the promotional pictures and the trailers for this when it first came out. I never looked at the suit and went, what are you doing? You've destroyed Spider-Man for me. I think sometimes people get really, really harsh on that kind of stuff, and I would say kind of unnecessarily so when they just trash, the look of it and things like that. I've always thought it looked great. Like, I can even remember when the Spider-Man PlayStation game came out recently. He has the big white spider logo, and he's got some other white details on it. I think some people liked it, some people didn't. I thought it was kind of a bold departure, but again, it helps separate it, that each version of the character we see, that's how you can easily differentiate the look of it. And then when we get Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland all on screen at the same time at some point, then we can actually figure out which one's which easier.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the suit. Harrison, I'm going to agree with you. I feel like it actually is, maybe until we see Black Symbiote Spider-Man suit, who knows if we'll ever get that. This really does. This holds up for me almost to where I'm not quite ready to call it my favorite suit, but man, it is much better than I remember. Like you said, I love the little detail of his web shooters. So let's change topics. Let's talk about Gwen Stacy's dad. He has the argument with Peter. I don't really buy his change of heart immediately. And the whole cliche thing, he has to die and he asked Peter to promise, which at the end of the movie, I'm sorry, makes Peter look like a total jerk, with his cringy line that those are the best kind of promises. The ones that you break, like, all right. But I wasn't quite sure I bought him. I get it, his daughter's there, but Rob, I'll let you start. Like, how did you feel about that?
So first of all, I love Dennis Leary. I love his stand-up. I wish he was in more movies, because he's great. It is the holiday season. I think it's still on HBO. If you want to see a great Dennis Leary Christmas movie, there's one with him called The Ref, where he has to play a criminal who is stuck kidnapping two married people that are going through marital problems, and they're in counseling. And he has to be in the middle of them arguing, and just does his stereotypical, like, if you love the stand-up comedy of Dennis Leary where he just riffs and goes nuts, it's phenomenal. I love it. It's got Kevin Spacey in it, so I guess trigger warning, if that's problematic for you that Kevin Spacey's in it. But yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm a huge fan of him. I love his stand-up, and I wish we got to see more of him as an actor, which kind of bummed me out when he died at the end of this. Is like, okay, well, we don't get more of him. That's kind of disappointing. I liked him as a cop in this. I thought he was good. I thought he had a good presence. I thought he was kind of good as the semi-intimidating dad role. The whole dinner scene, though, to me is super cringy. Like, it's so awkward, and I would never watch that scene again on rewatches. I would just skip through it. The ending of it, though, I don't know. I mean, if I had to pick somebody for one of my daughters to date, I'd be okay with her hanging out with a superhero, because how's she going to be better protected than with a superhero? Like, who's going to take better care of her? Like, how's that? I mean, I would tell him, though, listen, Peter, here's one thing you got to do for me. Stop taking off your damn mask all the time so people can figure out who you are. Like, keep your alter ego. Like, I feel like he has his mask off in the spider suit more than he has it on. Like, how does not everybody know? And this is like, people have camera phones at this time when this movie comes out. Like, what are you doing? have you completely lost your mind? I know that they got to give the lead a little bit of face time, and we've seen that in other times where, you've got masked characters that are looking for excuses to take the mask off, but it literally feels that way in this movie. Like he's taking the mask off just to show his face more. Like that's honestly how it feels. There's no other reason for him to do it. He almost never has it on as Spider-Man, and it's kind of distracting. The other thing I'll say about Captain Stacy towards the end of the movie, when he's got the shotgun and he's helping Peter fight the lizard, there's that bit where he kind of like turns and aims the shotgun, which by its nature, even if you don't know a lot of things about guns, shotguns shoot a wide dispersion of pellets. They're not particularly like super accurate. If you're trying to get pinpoint precision, that's not what it's for. It's a whole lot of damage across a wide area. And he aims at the liquid nitrogen or whatever's in that hose, and he hits it and just somehow knows that hose is going to work its way to Peter's hand so that he can douse the cold spray on the lizard. Like that to me was I was just like, all right, this is dumb. Like it broke the scene for me. I'm like, this is dumb. And the arbitrary way that we just know he has to die, I don't know. Those were my problems with the character.
Harrison, where do you stand on Captain Stacy?
I like him because it finally. Well, hold on. I agree with so many things that Rob said, and I have plenty of complaints I'll get to. But I have to first mention the one thing that I like about him. I have never, ever understood why people would not love Spider-Man. Like, J. Jonah Jameson, what's his beef? Like, okay, he's a great character. I love him. I love the way J.K. Simmons plays him. But, like, what's your problem, dude? Like, he's helping people. Like, seriously. It's smoking one too many cigars or something. I don't know. I've never understood why people would not be 100% behind a Spider-Man helping the city the way he does, particularly in a universe where we know other superheroes exist. At least, I guess we should say in the comics. I don't know about it, this Sony universe thing. But Captain Stacy gives me understanding that, like, yeah, there is, law enforcement and justice is a complex system, and there's laws, for better or for worse, that are set up for our protection, designed to function a specific way. And if someone just comes in doing whatever they want, like, that's going to throw off the whole system. Like, I get that. And so I could understand the I don't know, hesitation to be totally on board with Spider-Man. So that I liked the character there because it finally gave me understanding about that. But the other things about him, he's just like that dinner scene. Like, they just took the overbearing dad who's interrogating the boyfriend up to 25, like past 11, all the way up to 25. It was too much. And then the ending scene, like, he dies, and it's just like, well, that was fast. I mean, it's sad. But yeah, I don't know. I like the character that I think it can give us an understanding into the imperfections of someone who is Spider-Man and what Spider-Man means as a symbol into the city of New York. I like that. But as a character outside of that, it doesn't work for me in any way.
Yeah, I think, again, I have to point out, though, even though his death is like, oh, okay, like, yeah, of course he has to die. I think once again, though, Garfield knocks that out of the park, like, with his performance of being distraught that, this guy came to help him, he's dead. And not only did, like, just this guy that came to help him, but, now your love interest is going to be without a father because he came to help you. Like, what is that going to mean? And I think that's a really well played scene too, when Gwen comes to see Peter and she's like, my father died. Where were you? The way that they play off of each other, and just Andrew sitting there and, him being like, I can't do this. Like, I can't be with you. That scene's really well done. And then it's just like, it's abruptly cut with what I thought was a really weird, like, oh, what a pretty girl. Did you ask her out? Like, what? If you saw the girl, you would have heard their conversation. Like, what do you mean, did you ask her out? Like, I feel like it was just really like an odd thing for Aunt May to ask him. Because if you saw her, then I feel like she would know their conversation. So I thought it took away from, the ending where it was really, a great scene between the two of them just being emotional about, I can't do this. I made a promise. And then again, I think it's undercut by his ridiculousness of his line at the end. But I felt most of that was very well done.
Aunt May's line's terrible because it's like, that's a pretty girl. Did you ask her out? Real people don't talk like that. Like that's a line in a movie. Nobody talks like that. Why is this here?
It's even worse because you can just tell that Sally Field hates everything. Like, especially in that scene. It's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for you. This scene doesn't work. Can we just get it over with, please?
Yeah, that's actually really funny because I'll just say it now. Like, she's done. Did you guys know? Like, she's actually done interviews stating how she doesn't like this movie at all.
I think I saw something about that recently, and she's such a talented actress. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw Sally Field in a movie where I didn't think she was amazing. Like, you think about her in Mrs. Doubtfire and certainly Forrest Gump. Like, she's great at everything. And it disappoints me that she was like, yeah, I hated this.
Yeah, no, she is just on record as like she did it for her friend who unfortunately passed away with this movie. But yeah, like she is just on public record saying she does not like this. She doesn't like this movie at all, but she did say she wanted to point out that she absolutely loved working with Andrew Garfield. But she cannot stand this movie, which I find pretty funny.
Yeah, you think about it, like we've got her and Martin Sheen sharing scenes together. Like those actually were pretty good. I don't necessarily think I believe the relationship between Ben and Peter the way you guys like it. But I do think the relationship between May and Ben, I think it's set up well, and I think it's effective.
Yeah. So what, Rob, we're kind of getting to the end of the movie here, so to speak. And I want to ask both of you guys this question. So Gwen Stacy's incredibly smart. Do you remember, I hope you guys remember the scene because we just rewatched it. She uses what, a blowtorch, a flamethrower, whatever it is, when she's hiding in the closet from Lizard with the MacGuffin container that's going to disperse the toxic all over the city. And she's in a cabinet that right to the right of her in the same thing says flammable. And she's just burning fire at the Lizard. And I'm like, I feel like somebody should have caught that on like an editing page and been like, well, anybody with eyes would see that this looks stupid.
Also, it drives me nuts that the hand he holds up to block the flame.
Oh, yeah.
Gets shot off with a shotgun.
Right.
No. Indestructible one scene, basically Lego pieces the next.
Right. So, Rob, you don't care too much for the relationship between Peter and Ben. So, because I think this is something that worked pretty well at the end when Peter, he's saved the city from Lizard, so to speak, and not everything's good, but he finally plays the voicemail from Uncle Ben. I think it works. I know you said you're not a fan of their relationship, but how do you feel him playing that message at the end? Do you feel like that was the right thing, or do you feel like that's just another like a spot that's supposed to make you feel something but actually doesn't?
So, in a vacuum, the message itself, I kind of liked this reoccurring thing they set up where he starts to listen to the voicemail, but then he doesn't finish it because it brings him too much grief. I sort of like that, and I definitely liked what Andrew Garfield did with it. But then when he finally brings himself to listen to the full message, if you just look at the words themselves, yes, it's a very touching message, and I think it's in a vacuum, it's a great way to end the film. But then when you kind of like step back and go, would any of that honestly have been left on a voicemail? No, those are, I don't know. I think there's some people that communicate better when you don't have to have the other person there on the other line or right there in front of you. You know, we certainly know in the internet day and age, the expression of like keyboard warriors, of people who get very tough when they're not right next to somebody or are a little bolder. But at the same time, like I didn't feel like any of that super heartfelt, deep, loving language would have ever made it to a voicemail. Like that's something you want to express in person, I think, because you want to make sure that person hears hears you and has the opportunity to respond to it, and you can really get that emotion and that message out. So I think it would like it's great, except that's just not how anybody would have done that.
Harrison, where do you stand on that last message?
Very similar to what Rob said. I think the idea of him finishing the voicemail is more interesting than the actual voicemail.
Yes.
Like I hardly remember anything that was actually said. Like there was even subtitles on, so I was reading it and hearing it, and the two forms of input didn't work. But I think that the idea is, powerful. That he's overcoming the grief, he's accepting it or whatever it is, forgiving himself. I don't know. It's a good ending. It's just, and it's also weird especially in addition to what Rob said, it's weird to think about in the context of when he's leaving him that voicemail. Like he's leaving him that voicemail after he like to remind him to go pick up Aunt May, and to not be late. And like after they had an argument and kind of went their own ways, and then he comes home and gets yelled at. Like that voicemail was sent by Uncle Ben just before Peter came home, and he had to say, "My wife, your aunt." Like the same dude that said that a few minutes earlier left this nice voicemail, and it just doesn't. It does not work.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there's, a lot of merit there to the timing of when that voicemail is supposed to line up. So I think I think those are very good points as to why it doesn't necessarily, like the idea, like you said, the concept of him finally listening to it to get, kind of move past his grief and, continue to do what he is going to do as Spider-Man. It's a good concept executed poorly.
If you were to just grab those kind of three scenes, the scene that would have happened before the voicemail, and then the scene immediately after it, and you just kind of like sandwich them together like chronologically, you go, what the hell?
That would be.
Yeah.
You go, this doesn't make sense.
No, absolutely. So I want to talk about, I'm going to group mine together here. Our least favorite character, favorite scenes. And I'm going to go with my least favorite character in this movie is Lizard. Now, it's to me different from Curt Connors because I think some of the original stuff with Curt Connors, when Parker first comes to see him, when he says, I was angry at your father for leaving. We were going to change people's lives. Mostly, we were going to change my own. And I was angry and I stayed away from you and your family. Like, I think that's really good. But yeah, as soon as he starts to become Lizard, and again, maybe it's just because of how much they cut of that story, he just becomes super uninteresting to me. And, for the person who's supposed to be the main villain of this movie, I can't get behind him at all, regardless of the fact that there's some good scenes with him in there, mostly because of the fighting style of Spider-Man. I think he's the worst character in this movie for me. And then I will say my favorite scene, which I did not like when I first saw this movie, is the crane scene. I actually really like it now. I like him webbing up his leg. When I first saw it, I thought it was really, really cheesy, the cranes coming together to give him a path. But for whatever reason now, I just really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done.
It's a good kind of cheesy, though. It's you're right. It is a little like, but at the same time, like I'm sitting there just like watching it, being like, go Spidey, go. Like I'm like jumping up and down and happy about it. Like, even though I recognize like, this probably wouldn't work that way, but that's okay. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a good level of like camp for a
Right.
comic book movie, and it works really well, especially for like just like, yeah, it's Spider-Man. Like the city and Spider-Man are coming together, and he's swinging, and then on top of that, we also just get like incredibly well shot swinging that really feels like you're in the action swinging. I don't know if I'm going next, but that is also my favorite scene. So yeah, great scene.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it was very well done. Do you guys have anything that you like, character like I just talked about, one that just really doesn't work? Rob, maybe it's Uncle Ben.
It's not necessarily that I don't think he works. It's just some of it and I think part of it for me is proximity, because it's been less than 7 days, I think, since I saw the Raimi trilogy back to back to back. And there's some real fun that you can have when you binge something like this, the way that Harrison does a lot with his show. I think there's definitely some things that I got out of the Raimi trilogy, but having what I thought was a good origin, I liked the relationship with Ben and Peter in the original film, and I just think it didn't. And I think part of it is just there's a couple of scenes back to back to back that don't work for me, and it's the fact that they kind of dance around the great power, great responsibility. They don't really say it. They purposely don't say it, I think. That you can't afford your milk money. Like, that scene just kind of sucks. Like, that's what the penny dish is for. Like, if you need 2 cents, you just grab it. Like, why does that dude care? That guy's making, what is this to come out? 2012. That guy's making $7.25 an hour. You're going to tell me he cares if a high school kid grabs 2 pennies out of the little dish that's there specifically for that purpose? There is no chance that guy cares. Like, why is this a scene? Why is this happening? It's only there to make the audience dislike that character, so that when he eventually gets robbed and Peter just goes, you got what you had coming because you were a jerk to me. And we're supposed to like think that he was justified for that. That's the only reason that scene exists. And it just doesn't work. And I don't really like the way that Ben gets shot. To me, I think that whole bit the whole thing together, I think, just doesn't work for me the way that maybe it was supposed to. I don't know. And I guess, Matt, for least favorite character, I think we're probably all going to more or less agree that it is Lizard. It just doesn't work. I've already said I don't really think Flash works either. I'm bored with seeing that same character over and over again. Like, I don't need him. I don't need the ditzy cheerleader. I don't need any of these exact same characters that we see the exact same way in every movie or TV show ever till the end of time. But if we're going to talk into favorite scene, for me, it's kind of the first real Spidey scene when the carjacker gets in and he's sitting in the back seat, and he's funny, and the movement is great. The fight is great. The webbing, the way he uses it is great. The creativity and the action choreography, the whole thing just feels like, man, this was what I wanted in the original Raimi trilogy that I never really got. And it makes me really excited to see more of it in this movie that we do get later. And kind of makes me wish that, they would have given Garfield more films to work with so we could have seen more of that.
Yeah. Harrison, anything you want to add?
Ditto everything that Rob just said. That was really well said. I will add as well that, how can I say this the right way? Even though I did say those positive things that I do like about the character of Uncle Ben, I wouldn't necessarily say that he's my least favorite character, but the thing that makes me, going back all the way to our rewatchability rating that we gave it, how it was medium, like the thing that's taken it down the most for me, almost towards a low, is that entire first half of the movie. And you just remove the character of Uncle Ben, I like this movie a lot more now. You change some things about the Lizard, I will also like this movie a lot more now. But it's not like there's nothing about the Lizard that makes me not enjoy this or doesn't make it fun. Like, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, another weak villain, but that's just par for the course with these superhero movies. Like, you know what I mean? But Uncle Ben is like, oh, come on. Like, I don't need this. Like, can we get to the fun part where Spider-Man's swinging and he's punching the giant green guy? I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking about it, like, not thinking highly enough for what I'm watching. But when I want to be entertained and a Spider-Man movie does that, this Uncle Ben stuff is just a bore. It's a snooze fest. So yeah. And then if I were to move on to a favorite, besides the Crane one that I already mentioned, another favorite that I had would just be the way Gwen comes to Peter and invites him for dinner. Like, the way that works chronologically doesn't really make sense. But the performance of the characters in that moment, and also just the characterization of Gwen coming to Peter, and the way that it makes the relationship so much better than anything I've seen so far in the Raimi trilogy, I really, really like. And I think, for me, puts another another star towards the Amazing Spider-Man films over the Raimi trilogy, is the way that this relationship really does work well between Gwen and Peter.
Yeah, I totally agree. With that being said, it is time to roll the credits. During roll credits, we're going to rate the movie 1 out of 5 reels. Also talk about maybe some interesting facts about this movie. So I'm going to start with one interesting fact that it's kind of weird, but this is the first Spider-Man film, and I don't know why they kept lining up like this, that wasn't released with a Harry Potter movie. I found that kind of interesting. That the other 3, I never even thought about that, actually released within the same kind of time frame as Harry Potter. And also, I mentioned it, but I do find it extremely funny that Sally Field, who played Aunt May, just like absolutely hated this movie, which makes it weird that she came back for 2.
And you would think that you would pull your
right.
You would think, like, when you know something like Harry Potter's coming out, like, that's a big tent pole, like everyone's coming out for that. That's going to do a big number at the box office. Studios move, like the MCU is doing that for sure. Like, studios stay as far away from an MCU release as they can. I mean, they'll release an independent film or a rom-com that's not going to necessarily compete with the people that want to come out and see this. But that's interesting that they would kind of the studios would go head to head like that. You would think they'd want to avoid each other.
Harrison, you have anything that you found interesting about this movie?
I just love seeing Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I know we've sung his praises a lot, but I'm sure this is probably common knowledge to everybody. But he loves Spider-Man. Like, he, as a kid, he grew up loving Spider-Man, and he was kind of his hero. So it was a big deal for him to be able to play Spider-Man. And I was just listening to an interview with him where he mentioned that the first time he put on the suit, he just started to cry. Like, it was just like a moment where he felt like he was living up to a hero that he always wanted to, which I think is really powerful in the character of Peter Parker. Like, yeah, and whether that transfers over into the screen or not, I'm not really talking about, but just as like an idea, as Peter Parker and Spider-Man as an idea, I think that that's really cool and makes these films a little bit sweeter in how that actor real life crosses over into the ideas that are part of the character of Spider-Man. I really like that. But I didn't really have time to research any other details. The other one I have, though, is just like the stunt work that they did. So that obviously there was a lot of practical work done with wires and rigging to allow Spider-Man to swing. And one of the ways they did it is they had this huge like truck thing that they built that had this giant, like kind of like a forklift type thing.
Yeah.
That would extend out the front of it, but really, really high up in the air. So you could get it out of the camera with wide shots and allow Spider-Man to swing, or the stunt person to swing in the street of New York and drive over the cars without harm, which I think is really cool. I think that is one thing about this film. I've talked about the practical and physical work of the swinging and the action, but also just the city of New York. Like, everything, I've only watched the one film in the Raimi trilogy so far, and my memory about the others is really foggy. But so far, everything in that always feels like a set. Like, I never feel like I'm in New York. Like, I feel like I'm in some backlot that's trying to look like New York, where here I feel like I'm in New York. and there was a lot of work that went into this. They filmed on location in New York, but they also were in Universal's New York lot. But to make it more realistic, they spent like months putting stickers and advertisements all over the place to then wear out over like the course of a summer and winter. And then they built like fake pigeons to put on top of light poles. Like they did a lot to add to like the authenticity of the city of New York, and it
Yeah, I think that was a heck of a point there, because it definitely feels like New York. It feels living and breathing, more so than the Raimi movies do to me. I think that's a very, very valid point.
Yeah, because New York as a city is really central to Spider-Man as a character. I mean, that's his home, and he feels connected to the city. And it's a reoccurring theme throughout all Spider-Man media, comics, movies, games, TV shows, and so on. So for them to really get it right the way they did here, I love that detail that they put the stickers out and let them age over time. Like, that to me is one of those many things about filmmaking that the average viewer just will never notice. Somebody made the decision to do that, and the fact that the whole thing makes it feel authentic, for that one small minor detail that if they hadn't done it, maybe it doesn't necessarily impact you. Like, you don't necessarily notice, oh, those stickers don't look worn out, but like, it just makes everything feel authentic. It's all these little things that add up to sell that willing suspension of disbelief.
I love it about it. I was reading the one thing I did have a chance to read about it, and it was talking about how they filmed on location and all that. And I just kept expecting the whole thing to talk about filming on location, and then all of a sudden it started talking about how they filmed on a lot. And I was like, really? Like, this entire thing wasn't in actual New York? And it surprised me because it does feel so authentic.
Yeah, definitely does. So I'm going to go first here as we jump over to the actual overall rating, where we rate this between 1 and 5 reels. And when I first saw this movie, I had it very, very low. I don't quite have it as high as Spider-Man 1 and 2. I still feel like those are, I don't know, I hate to say better. I still feel like the rehashing kind of is skewing my opinion on this, but I have this at 3.5 reels for my rating for this movie.
That's probably really close. I was actually surprised at how much I liked this movie, and I felt like this is something that I should have watched sooner than I did. There's a lot of fun things here. There's a lot of things that work really well. There's a lot of things that don't work really well. I've got it 3.25 reels.
Well, I'll just take the next step down. Mine's at 3 reels. I really had to think about it, though. It was hard for me because I also I'm trying to think about the other films I'm going to watch and be like, okay, where am I going to put those? Because I don't want to put this too high or too low so that others therefore have. Anyway, it's way too much work in my brain. But I do feel like it's just kind of like we said at the beginning. Like, there's some really, really great things about this film. There's also some really bad things about this. And while those great things are fun, they're not like, oh my gosh, this is exceptional. It's just kind of like, yeah, it's good. And it just slightly teeters towards more good than it is not good. Just barely for me. And most of that comes down to Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, he is. Again, for me, I think if this is, for whatever reason, somehow this was the first Spider-Man movie, I think this is like just incredibly highly regarded in terms of how this is made to look for fans with the portrayal of Spider-Man. So, this has been a lot of fun. We've got the Amazing Spider-Man 2 coming up, and then we've got the task of getting through the 2 MCU Spider-Man movies in anticipation of No Way Home, which I know, Harrison, you and I have our tickets ready to go. I'm going to have to be in extreme camouflage mode because I do not have my tickets until 10:50 at night on the 17th. So I am going to have to avoid everything.
Oh no, I am so I would just with work and the way my wife's and my schedule lined up, we can't go until Saturday the 18th at like 4 in the afternoon. So like Wednesday of next week, I'm just going off the internet. Like, leave me alone, don't talk to me. And then my sister, she's going to see it on like the 16th or something. It's like, oh my gosh, she's gonna want to text me afterward. I'm gonna be like, hey, leave me alone.
I am blocking your number for 3 days. Like,
Yeah.
Y'all suck. It's going to be like January before I get a chance to see it.
Oh no, the harshness.
I'm going to have to literally completely go radio silent with the internet.
Yeah, which is, going to be difficult. But, Harrison, I would like to give you a shot. Obviously, your show notes are going to be in the links here. But, if for some reason this is the first episode a new listener is getting their hands on, tell them about the Basement Binge. And, obviously you can find it wherever you get your podcast, but tell them a little bit what it's about. And, you just had a pretty busy month in November.
Yeah, that was a lot. So the Basement Binge is a movie review podcast, if you didn't guess, where I like to binge movies. Who would have thunk it? So yeah, it really started off with series. So if you like comic book movies, if you like Spider-Man, the Basement Binge started by reviewing all of the, at the time, 23 Marvel movies, which was a ton of fun. So most recently, though, in November, I did something that I've wanted to do for the longest time, which was Nolan November. I wasn't able to get all of his films, but 8 of his films, binging through them and doing reviews on those. It was a blast. It was a lot of work. I decided to do it during the busiest time of year for me with my job, which probably wasn't smart, but it was fun. It was a blast. So yeah, if you like Christopher Nolan or if you like movie review podcasts, check out the Basement Binge wherever you get podcasts. Additionally, if you like Spider-Man, I love being here on Matt's show. So I'm going to be for those episodes, but also just for my own sake, just for the heck of it. Next week is going to be Spider-Man week. Every day is going to be like a short 10-minute review on each of the Spider-Man films leading up to No Way Home. Additionally, coming out this weekend, an episode on the new, oh my gosh, just forgot the name of it. What's it called? West Side Story film. Steven Spielberg is coming out. So very, very excited for that.
Very, very cool. Rob, why don't you take listeners through, let them know, where they can interact with the show. We've certainly been getting an upkick in social media interaction. I recently it was really cool. I got to do an episode with my son for Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, which in 4 days has become the second most downloaded episode I've done for the show. Which is really, really cool that people have really locked on to that episode. I don't know how I'll feel if it beats Power Rangers, but
Is Power Rangers still the number one?
Yeah. So it is really cool though that something that I got to do with my son has been so popular so quickly, and people have really engaged with it. But yeah, Rob, walk people through where can they interact with us, because it's certainly been fun being able to, answer, people answering questions and really kind of interacting with this Spider-Man marathon that we've been doing.
Yeah, so definitely want to do that. But the first thing I got to ask, because Brandon was ready for that, we need more Brandon. Does Brandon have his dad's mutant ability to do a show like that without notes? I just need to know.
I will say that he had notes in his phone, but I only watched him go to it twice as we were doing it. So it seems
you're saying it's genetic.
Yeah, a little bit of that rubbed off.
That's unbelievable.
I'm excited to listen to this episode. I haven't gone to it yet, but
it's quite good. So so listeners, if you haven't checked out Final Fantasy, if you're a fan of that series, I've not actually seen that movie, but I really did enjoy the conversation, and between the two of them is a great episode, and I'm looking forward to possibly more future episodes with Brandon. Quick plug for the Basement Binge, if you want to check out Nolan November, was a lot of fun. I listened to most of it and really enjoyed the Batman ones. I particularly enjoyed the episode on The Dark Knight. Harrison put a ton of work into behind the scenes details. It was really a lot of fun, and certainly made the drive to work go a lot faster for me throughout Nolan November. So quick shout out if you're looking for a couple of episodes to listen to after this one. For listeners of this show, We love interaction. We love it. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. And please, if you're listening to this going, I don't know if they actually mean for me to interact or not. Yes, you listening to this in your car or in your earbuds or on the train or on your way to class or whatever side quest you happen to be on right now, we do mean you. Please look up the show on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. Matt will post little short clips on TikTok that are easily shareable. If you can kind of see what the show was about, if you're not sure if you're going to download that particular episode or not. But there's polls, there's all kinds of discussion. And it's a lot of fun to kind of hear what different fans think. And I'll tell you, especially when it gets into things like Star Wars, things like comic book characters, fans will very quickly get very passionate about their favorite one, so it's really a lot of fun to hear from listeners. So please check all those out. You can also email the show, mgttmpodcast@gmail.com. So it's just the first initials of Matt Goes to the Movies podcast@gmail.com. Drop us a note. Tell us what you like. If you've got a power ranking of the Spider-Man movies that you want to share, we would love to hear it. Maybe we'll read it on air. So please make sure you do that as well. All interaction is good. While you're at it, you can review the show on Podchaser. You can certainly review The Basement Binge on Podchaser. You can review Matt Goes to the Movies on Podchaser. You can do an individual episode review or review the show as a whole. 5-star reviews are awesome, but if it's not 5 stars, put whatever you think. And you can leave comments as well about the show to let other listeners know that this is a show worth checking out.
To just speak a little bit, first, Rob, that was very nice what you said, but also please leave reviews. I mean, everything Rob just said was fantastic. Like, I wish I could copy and paste that and put that in every single one of my episodes. But reviews are fantastic. Like, as someone who just received some reviews, including some that Rob and Matt left so nicely, thank you again. It is like one of the best things you can receive. Well, any type of interaction is, honestly, but reviews are in particular helpful. It helps us know what you as the listeners are enjoying, and make those adjustments so that you can continue to enjoy it. And also, it just, gives us a great shot of dopamine that everybody appreciates from time.
Yeah, no, very well said by both of you. I look forward to, the trio actually, from what we can tell, being able to finish out the rest of the Spider-Man movies. It's going to be a lot of fun. Rob, again, it's super interested because you'll have a fresh set of eyes for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, because, correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't watched that film either.
Not yet. I am looking forward to getting it out of the way, because I'll tell you, the way that this one ends definitely has me enticed for the next one, even though I know that one is not well regarded.
Yeah, so, having your... again, like, it's not well regarded, but you've never seen it, so that'll be really cool for your first viewing. So, listeners, I won't repeat everything that Rob and Harrison said, but I certainly feel share the same sentiments. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Look forward to continuing this Spider-Man marathon. And until next time, thank you for listening at Matt Goes to the Movies.